Good morning, New Life Church. My name is Cody Yeoman. I'm so excited to be here with y'all today. Yes, I'm in my vehicle. There are some of y'all who are at a point in your life where this is the quietest place on earth. So you can appreciate that. I hail from the West Little Rock campus. Got to say hi to my family out there, Pastor Harry and Sherilyn, our team, our church. I love you guys. Good morning. This week's been about really hard conversations, right? I mean, we've talked about bullying, we've talked about anger, we've talked about how people are influenced really negatively at times, right? And how we can do a better job. This morning, I want to continue that conversation about how we influence well, all right? Not lead well, but influence well. And I want to have a little bit of fun with this, but I also want to be serious, okay? But I was thinking about ways that I just, myself, as a dad, as a husband, how I influence. I think about my 7-year-old Walt, and I'm like, man, I want him to clean up after himself or clean up his room. And we'll do a chore board, or, we'll offer an incentive at the end. Maybe there's a toy, maybe there's money. Sometimes it resorts to, I'm going to threaten your life and I'm going to whoop you if you don't get it done. That one doesn't tend to be as long lasting as far as the results. But consistency is the key there, right? I think about Brandy. I'm like, how can I influence my wife? I'm going to do some laundry, do some dishes, maybe get a little something in return. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I'm like, babe, did you not see the laundry I did and the dishes I did? And then you can imagine how that works out. I think about it at work. I'm like, what does that influence look like? Because there's timelines, there's pressure, there's results that need to be done. Like, how do I work with my team? Am I just trying to force that situation, or am I trying to encourage the situation? Y'all know what I'm talking about? I mean, have you been at work where there's somebody you may have in senior leadership and he leads by a title? Like, you're going to do this because I said so, because I'm this, right? That doesn't typically work, right? And so Dale Carnegie says this in How to Win Friends and Influence People. He says, there's only one way under high heaven to get anybody to do anything, and that's to get them to want to do that. Well, if you want to get somebody to want to do something and you want to influence them in that direction, they got to know why, right? And so more importantly, or not more importantly, but that goes along with that, when you are trying to communicate to somebody the why, what do you look like when you're doing it? All right? Do you look good? Do you look bad? I'm going to give you an example here in Galatians 5, okay? Where they talk about the fruits of the flesh and fruits of the spirit. So fruits of the flesh says they're evident. They're clearly seen. And you've got immorality, there's impurity, there's hostility, there's anger, there's bitterness, there's conflict, there's jealousy, there's divisiveness, there's envy. I mean, it's a whole long list of something you don't want to be involved in. And then you got the fruits of the Spirit. Well, there's love, there's joy, there's peace, there's patience, there's kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. So when we're influencing a situation, do we look like fruits of the flesh, fruits of the Spirit? So how do we get down to this why, though? Like, what's the why behind all this? And I love how Jesus puts it here in Matthew 22:36, okay? I mean, you're not going to learn anything new today, okay? I'm keeping it simple. But he says, love our God with all of your heart, your soul, and your mind, and all your strength, all right? He said, this is the first and greatest commandment. But he said, like that, okay? There's picture an equal sign almost between the two. They're interchangeable. He said, like that, you got to love your neighbor as yourself. So what is he saying? He's saying, hey, the degree in which you love your neighbor is probably going to be the degree in which you love me. The way you measure your neighbor is probably the way I'm going to measure you, all right? And so the way that we treat them is going to be the way that we're going to want to be treated, yes, but we have to love our neighbor if we're going to truly love our Father. And so Paul says right here in 1 Corinthians 13:13, he says, 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of those is love. All right, so the why in all this, right, is to love. We want to love God. And in order to do that, we got to love our neighbor. And so as we're trying to influence a situation, whether it's to get our kids to do something, we're trying to persuade our wife, we're trying to encourage our team to get a desired result, right? We got to remind them of the why. And when we're doing it, all right, are they seeing these fruits of the flesh? Or are they seeing fruits of the Spirit, right? That's going to depend on how they respond and react to us. So I don't have a bunch of points for you guys this morning, versus I've got a few questions for you this morning. What does it look like when you're trying to influence others in your life? All right? Like, do you look like Jesus? Do you look like the enemy at times? Do you look like someone who's selfish? Do you look like someone who's generous? Do you look like someone who's just trying to expedite the process to get the job done, and it doesn't matter whose feelings you hurt along the way? Or are you thinking about that individual? I mean, they say that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And so those are the questions to ask ourselves: is how well are we influencing? And are we doing a decent job, or a good job, or a great job? So here's what I encourage you to do. Ask your kids how well you're influencing them. Ask your wife. Ask your coworkers. Are you the same person that you are at home that you are at work? I'll give you a quick example, all right? Last week, a good buddy of mine that I work very closely with, Tim, and Tim loves Jesus too. We got in a heated discussion / battle last week. And y'all know, anytime you get into those talks with one another, those just, it was a straight up fight, truthfully, all right? Nobody wins, right? And here's what happened. When we first got back together, all right, and we saw each other, we just both felt badly about how we spoke to one another. We apologized to one another. And here you got two guys who were trying to be walking, talking testimonies of what Jesus looks like, right? But in that moment, that if anybody else in the building saw how we were talking and behaving toward one another, and trying to essentially push / influence / probably even bully one another into each other's opinion or agenda, nobody would have seen Jesus in that. Now, fortunately, we repented to each other. We asked for forgiveness from each other. But we got to be on our game, right? Because there's people constantly looking at us going, I think that person loves Jesus. They talk about it, right? But are they seeing it in your actions and in your words, right? It's always difficult, right? That's why we got to be in the Word every day. We got to be around a community of people who's pushing us and holding us accountable every day. And things like this, being in a Devo every day, right? They sharpen us. So I just want to encourage y'all this week. Influence well. Let's tighten up our games. Love you guys. Make it a great week.